Um, so this is a new episode of People Over Politics. We have, of course, some new faces, some new guests. I appreciate you for joining us today, CannaQuest.
No doubt, bro. No doubt. It's my pleasure to be.
Yes.
Thank you for
Well, I
having me.
mean, to be honest with you, I've only known you as Quest. Like, do people just call you Quest? Like, what is your real name? Like, what's
My,
your government?
my government is my real name is John, but
Okay, okay.
yeah, nothing too crazy. But yeah, I do go as Quest, and in the streets, have everyone call me that.
Yes, yes. Well, for people who don't know about you, of course, you're well known in the cannabis ecosystem, and call you Canna Family. Just tell them a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Uh, I'm not a self-proclaimed cannabis comedian, but that's what it's becoming. I'm doing this to destigmatize cannabis in everyday life situations. Through my comedic skits and whatnot, I can display different scenarios and situations that people don't realize, whether it's during the purchasing at a dispensary or interacting with the plug behind Target. you know, I give views to both sides of the coin, and
Sure.
hopefully really get the different negative stereotypes held around cannabis to a brighter light.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay. So I mean, that's a lot. So you would consider yourself a comedian, you consider yourself an influencer. Really the way that I found out about you was probably through Instagram, right? So I don't know if I initially was following you or somebody that I was following started sharing your videos. Because like you said, I've seen, probably the evolution, over the last year of, like how you found your niche, right? So one of the coolest things that I think I've seen is like how you make education about, cannabis simple, fun, and but yet relatable. You know what I mean? So like you're teaching them about terpenes, but you're doing a TikTok. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's like you're keeping up with the times.
Yeah, you got to adjust, you got to tailor your message to your audience.
Yes, yes. And I mean, so like, how long are you? Are you? I would assume you are a MMC C patient, right?
Yeah. I'm a card holder.
Okay, so how long have you been a card holder?
About 2 years now, I think.
Okay, okay. I mean, I wish I could say I'm a card holder. Like I'm a card holder, but I've never actually held a card because in 3 years they haven't actually given me a physical card. But that's
Oh,
a whole another thing about them being understaffed, and we're not gonna harp on that.
right.
But so one of the things I wanted to ask you was you seem to know a lot of different people, in the industry, in of course in the legacy, what they call quote unquote legacy market. Have you been to all the dispensaries, or are you making a tour of all these dispensaries? I know that there's like 100 plus in Maryland.
No, I'm not.
No,
I've
you're staying with the
kind of
ones you.
busy, and like just sometimes it's like 2 hours away just to get to a dispensary, and like some local dispensaries are 45 away from me, so
Yeah,
I kind of wait for there to be a reason for me to go check them out. You know what I mean? Which, in my opinion, that's kind of how it should be. They should have some type of marketing or setup or something that's going to entice the patient or customer to make the extra trip. You know what I mean?
you're right.
Because
You're right. You're right.
yeah,
You bring up a good point. And like, what area of Maryland are you coming? It's like the Baltimore. You're from like the Baltimore region, right?
nah, I'm from Crofton near Annapolis.
Oh, Anne Arundel. Anne
Yeah,
Arundel. You guys got some decent shops. I know Mana is that they have one in Anne Arundel, and I've been to Gold Leaf. Gold Leaf is like the top tier bougie uh
yeah.
medical dispensary. I mean,
I
it's
like
cool.
Greenlight.
Everybody got the little vibes. Everybody got the little vibes, right?
I definitely like Greenlight.
Green Light. I don't know if I've been there. What town are they in?
Crofton on Route 3.
Green. Okay, on Route 3. Okay, I might have to check them out. I might have to check them out. Do
Yeah,
they have good deals? Is the question, because I'm always going for some good deal shopping.
depends on the day, my man. Depends on the day.
Okay, okay, okay. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, you know, we have question four, right? And I've been reminding people about question four, and not just about question four, and to make sure to register to vote, and encouraging them if they, are voting to vote yes, but to continue advocating after question four passes. So like, I guess my question to you would be, have you or are you voting yes on question 4? But like outside of just placing that vote, what do you want to see, in the upcoming, state of cannabis for Maryland?
I am voting yes on question 4. I definitely think we should be getting more public events going, bringing more influencers into the mix. Right now, I think with the way and how strict the MMCC is right now, a lot of these cannabis companies are scared to really touch anything. But I think that would be
Trust
the
me, I know what
thing.
you're talking about. I know
Bring
exactly.
it into the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, especially, there's been events, and of course the MMC, they could be sticklers and worry warts, right? When it comes to, I would say, public consumption, anything that has to do with public consumption. But the thought is like you said, we have to educate, and we have to have more safe spaces. So that definitely is something, that we need. And I think after it passes on the ballot, I think there'll be opportunity for more of that. Like I would love to see consumption lounges come, right? Like I would love you to be able to go purchase from the dispensary, and then go to the consumption lounge, be able to use your cannabis safely, and be able to go home. And if you want, you don't want to drive, we have a ride share service, right? Like imagine a ride share service that takes you wherever you want to go. You just so the quote unquote, you're traveling safe, because of course we don't want to encourage people to smoke and drive, even though we don't want to encourage people to do it.
Right.
Yeah. But the next thing I was gonna ask you was, you said more events. I think that's great. And so my homegirl Keisha from Explore Maryland Cannabis, probably, right?
Yeah.
So I think what she's doing is very great, because she's not only bringing in the social aspect of just having fun and community, and like bringing us all together, and having us use our strengths to help each other, but I think that she's looking at it from like how can I get my people jobs, and not only that, but how can I capitalize on their skills in this industry. And so like you do you work in the dispensary, or like for a dispensary? I've seen you everywhere.
I'm currently on my break.
Oh, hey, that is lit. That is lit. And so like, have you been working in dispensary as long as you've been a patient, or like how long have you been in the dispensary setting?
I was a patient like about a good couple months, 6 months before I was even working in the dispensary. My background is in finance.
Oh, okay. It's crazy. Why is there so many people in finance that got into cannabis? Like, that's Hope Wiseman and a lot of other people's story. Did y'all just see the writing on the wall, or what was that?
Where I just went where the money went at an early age. So, opportunity in cannabis presented itself. I just took advantage of it.
Yes, yes. And so I appreciate that. And the thought is like, I think in Maryland, I've seen over the last year, I've seen a really strengthening in the community, especially like the grassroots individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like one of the things that I would hope that continues is like, they really stick together, or I would say we stick together, as the business side opens up, right? Because there should be more partnerships, more cooperatives, and we should all be carrying the same message, that like we don't want to see the same thing happen here that happened to medical cannabis.
Exactly.
We want to make sure that there's legacy market that you're saying, these people are on the forefront, because one of the things that I capitalize on is they know it, but they've also paid the price for it, right? Like the things is people are capitalizing off of something that other people have paid the price off of, right? To cultivate these strands and these phenotypes, so on and so forth.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just hope that we don't lose any of the terpene testing.
Oh, yes. Well, you got a little turned around over there, Quest. You got turned around. But like Quest, that's one of the things that I talk about all the time. The fact that we are the only state, at least that I've visited so far, that has great terpene testing. Like I went to Colorado, and it was like a cannabis haven. There was more cannabis between recreational and medical than there were Starbucks, but they didn't have any terpene testing, right? Like, so you had great organic soil, you had this, that, and the third, but then you didn't have, terpene testing. So, I definitely feel you there. We can't lose that. Even in the rec market, we should still have that education. Oh, I think you might have pressed the mute button. Can't hear you there.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So that's like one of the things that worries me is, like if we're going to have medical and recreational cannabis, I don't want recreational cannabis to be to the detriment of the medical patient,
Yeah.
So I think realistically approaching both playing fields as the same, like terpene testing for the rec and for the medical, you won't have to keep it from the other. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be a detriment.
I agree. I mean, whether it's a medical market or whether we have a recreational market, we still need to have that educational component and that responsible consumption component, right? So like with anything, there should be responsible consumption and there should be education. I'm sure you can agree, just like, many other patients now, that your education increased and your desire for education, went up once you became a patient, right? Like you just started learning all these cool things, how your body interacted. And then the thought is like the biggest thing that a lot of people don't talk about is how this holistic option can decrease, what westernized medicine, right? All these opioids that, are affecting us as a community. I think that the most recent study I've seen was legal medical use, is seen to decrease opioid use by like up to 30% because, it offers an alternative that isn't as harmful, isn't as deadly, isn't as addictive, and of course is a lot more holistic.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I gotta tell you, Quest, the next guest I'm gonna have, he's the next sheriff elect, right? So it's just a diversity of thought. Of course, we have you, of course, who's in the industry, and you represent the people. I would say at the greatest extent, you represent the people. We have, of course, the sheriff. He still represents the people, but it's from a different lens. It's from a different perspective. And so, like, that would be interesting just to hear. And I think you probably, just like a lot of the other people, know that like they don't necessarily play a role in like drug enforcement, right? Like, so it will be interesting just to hear that, because like traditionally they're doing more, evictions and stuff of that nature.
Absolutely, yeah. Was it you who sent me that study that people were smoking in front of sheriffs so that they get better idea of the intoxication?
I don't know, but I would love to see that one. I don't know, sir. I didn't see that one. I didn't see that one.
Someone sent me that they were going to do like some kind of clinical study in somewhere in Maryland.
Well, I do think that there should be some education, right? Because you have CBD, which is completely legal, has been legal since the Farm Act, right? And it looks, it smells, feels exactly like the THC plant. But a lot of times, let's just say that you don't interact with it, you have no clue. You might not know that this is CBD as opposed to THC. I know I heard a story recently of someone in Greenbelt that has to go to court for it. Of course, after it gets tested, it's going to get dropped and everything like that. But, it is just a hassle for about the education aspect, because to some degree there isn't an education aspect, at least from like from a community perspective sometimes. And I know that they're doing a lot of training around the effects of driving now and cannabis. Like I know that I've seen a lot of veterans case studies being done, because of course that is serious. We should know, the effects. We should, understand this. But of course, it's also fear mongering. Did you see the story that there was one kid who got maybe not a kid, I'll call him a teenager. He got a medical card 2 years ago. I think he had like 18 accidents or 11 accidents. And then like now he's uninsurable, and his mom is like, oh my gosh, like pot in, my child. And I was like, woo, for one, that's terrible. But it also just seems like your son just might be a bad driver. You know what I mean? Or he shouldn't be consuming and then driving there. We need to make smarter decisions, right? Responsible consumption.
Absolutely. That I mean, that's the best way to do it, because, like, yeah. I mean, that's terrible. I'd never even heard of that story, dude. Like,
I'm gonna share it with you on Instagram. It was pretty funny because there's an anti-Yes on 4 campaign, and it's by like a couple parents. And the funnier thing about it was like just looking at the demographics, right? So the demographics, I saw the ad, I saw the speeches. It was mainly not people of color, right? And so there was just this one placed woman in there, and it was like, oh, she just looks like a prop. Oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Like, but the thought is like, for me, I try to tell people that, like, let's look at it from opportunity. Let's look at it from giving people dignity. But let's also look at it like, how can we do things differently from a municipality? Like, how can cannabis fix some of these roads? You know what I mean? Like, me from a councilman perspective, like how can it get us more holistic training for our police department, or for our citizens, more therapy, whatever it might be, right? Like how can this money actually benefit the community?
Yeah, that's, I mean, and I think that's kind of where content creators can come in and, like, kind of make videos and stuff that, I don't know, I'm not trying to force them to watch anything, but if they were to watch it, they may get a better insight on, like, the inner happenings,
But I think they also have to come to you, right? Like, these corporations and businesses, they have to come to you because you have the ear of the people. You have the ear of the consumer. And, like, let's just say that you went on a rant about one of these MSOs, a lot of people in the ecosystem throughout Maryland are going to know really quickly, right? Like, because information travels, and you have a voice.
Yeah, and we can. I don't think a lot of content creators know, but that they can really make or break a product for a company. So, especially with the knowledge, there's a lot of miseducation too. I saw a cannabis content creator actually saying, don't vote for question 4. And when I actually went and asked them why, they thought that it was because they're going to tax medical patients. And then when I asked them if they were actually if they actually read the bill, they didn't at all. So the fact that this person was able to spread their misinformation, that's also kind of worrying. But when you have, I believe that especially this community, we have a lot of really well-informed cannabis creators because we all work in the industry. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Like we don't just daylight as a content creator.
Of course. I mean, you're actually a consumer yourself, and you actually know what they want. You can speak to that. And Quest, of course, I know you're working hard over there. I wanted to get you a few lightning questions before we got you out of here. My first question to you is, what is your favorite strain and why?
My favorite strain is Northern Lights. I love, I just love it. It's like almost like a cerebral indica. You know what I mean? It's classic, but that's one of my favorites right now.
My next question would be, what is your favorite terpene and why?
Terpenoline. Terpenoline makes me feel like I'm popping out of a comic book. I love it.
Okay. I see. Mine's is limonene and pinene for, like, focus and being very uplifting.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
And so my last question is, favorite superhero and why?
Oh, my favorite superhero and why? Static Shock.
What? Hey, what? Yo, I am a Static Shock fan as well. You are the first person that has said Static Shock. I don't know how many episodes we've had so far, maybe 40 plus, but I'm hype about that. I'm looking forward to that movie. I hope it doesn't suck. But yes.
I hope they don't ruin it.
Yes.
I love it. If only they made a fucking toy for Static Shock. He would be on TV still and have his own movies by now, but back then, because merchandising was so big and they didn't do that shit for him because he was from an independent studio.
Of course.
Dude.
Of course. Static Shock forever.
They handled the issues that matter.
Exactly. No, you're right. You're right, buddy. And we're gonna keep that fight going. But tell people how they can stay connected with you. I know I've seen you have a new podcast, so make sure to drop the information. Tell people how they can reach out to you.
Definitely. You can find me anywhere under the name CannaQuest with 2 T's. Unless it's on Instagram, then it's CannaQuest Backup, because Instagram kicked me off, because this is why we're fighting. We gotta get equal playing fields. You can go pick up a bottle of alcohol on any site you want and you'll be fine. But if I smoke a J medicinally, I'm kicked off. Makes zero sense. But anywhere CannaQuest, new episode of Get to the Joint has dropped today. Cannabis, all centered around cannabis culture, news, all that.
Okay. Well, hey, Quest, I appreciate you, and good luck to you and Trav Dabs from Elevated Wellness. Definitely big shout out to him, one of the hardest working man in the business. I see you. And you, of course, continue to spread the good word.
Hey, you too, bro. I appreciate everything you do.
All right, I'll see you soon, brother.
All right, man.
Later. So that was Quest visiting us from Anne Arundel County. And, as promised, it's another double header. But I just wanted to remind you that we have elections coming up November 8th. It's incredibly important that you guys exercise your right. I don't want to, sit here and harp on my, soapbox. But, we have another candidate coming up. And, presumably he will be, our next sheriff of the great county of Prince George's, Maryland. And so I wanted to welcome Sheriff-elect John Carr.
Good afternoon or good evening. How are you today?
Hey, thanks for joining us. Sheriff-elect, of course.
Well, thank you for having me. How about Democratic nominee, and then hopefully after December 8th, it will be Sheriff-elect John
Yes.
Carr. How about that?
Yes. Democratic nominee. Absolutely. Democratic nominee. For people who don't know about you, right? Like you've been a community person. I know I met you on the Central Committee, when I was doing work with the Young Dems, still love the Young Dems. Just tell people who you are and, why you continue to do what you do.
Okay, so my name is John Carr, and I was born in Washington, D.C., but raised here in Suitland, Maryland. Attended school here, went to high school here in Bishop McNamara. Attended University of Maryland College Park for my undergrad in criminology, criminal justice, and had my master's in public administration from Norwich University. I've been working at the Office of the Sheriff for 20 years, and now a little bit over 20 years. Recently, I had just had to retire a little bit early this week as I've been focusing on the campaign and also focusing on moving forward with my community activities. So I was the lieutenant colonel for our Bureau of Field Operations at the Sheriff's Office, which I oversaw domestic violence, warrants, child support, landlord-tenant. As Martin said, hey, I also was on the Democratic Central Committee representing District 27 at the at-large member. I also was the gender balance member 4 years before that. So I've been out in the community. I've been coaching a lot of little league activities, football, track and field, basketball. So I've been around here in Prince George's County, and this is my county and one that I love so dearly, and the people here in the county.
For sure. And so, just so I'm clear, you did 2 terms on the Central Committee.
I did. I was a gender balance member and also as the Democratic at-large District 27 down here in Brandywine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and so gender balance wasn't appointed, and then you got voted in, right? That's how it works.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Congrats on that, and that's definitely a big accomplishment. For people who don't know, the Central Committee, they have it in every county. They have a Democratic and a Republican Central Committee, and essentially, they help rile support around the candidates. They also help make sure that the elections are functioning the way they should be, making sure we have enough ballots, this, that, and the third. And most importantly, they help decide who fills vacancies when there's ever a vacancy in public office. So the Central Committee, if I remember, it's an unpaid position, but it does take a good amount of effort and time and integrity.
That is correct. So it is an unpaid position, and it does take a lot of time. And you're talking about times after you get off of work. You're also talking about during the weekend actually being out there. You're that grassroots effort to try to educate folks as far as what is happening when it comes to politics, when it comes to the elected officials, when it comes to events. So as a grassroots effort, you need to be connected with a lot of different organizations to try to bring excitement for people to, one, vote, but two, so that you understanding that who are your elected officials. And again, we want to see Democrats elected, as it is the Democratic Central Committee. We want to elect Democrats. One thing I want to make sure that everybody's aware, during the primaries, the Democratic Central Committee does not get involved in those elections, only because it's Democrats against Democrats. Now, when it comes to the general election, that's when you'll have the Democratic Central Committee really get out and about and try to really push a Democratic candidate for not only the county, but also for the state. As right now, we're focusing on Wes Moore for governor. So that is one big thing that we've been doing, is we want to see Democrats elected here in the state, and also those Democrats elected here in Prince George's County.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody get out there to, definitely vote for Wes. You've heard me say many great things and why I'm voting for Wes, or why I did, because I've already cast in my ballot. But John, one of the things that I think the viewers need to know is, and I try to make it educational. So what's the biggest difference between the sheriff office and the police department?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. That's a very good question. So many people don't know the history of the sheriff's office. As you go throughout the county or out the country, you'll actually see that you have a large amount of primary law enforcement agencies are sheriffs, as it is in the state constitution that every county has a sheriff. We have court mandated functions. We're the law enforcement arm of the courts. The Prince George's County Police Department actually originated from the Prince George's County Sheriff's Office. Many people didn't know that. So the start of the Prince George's County Police Department, they were sheriffs that actually started that organization. The sheriff is an elected official and is elected every 4 years. The county police chief is appointed by the county exec. So our functions, we are not the primary 911 responders here in the county. We focus on our state mandated functions, which surround court security, dealing with inmates, also warrants, child support, domestic violence, our civil sections. We also have a fugitive section. So we're a little bit more specialized in what we do, but we have state mandated functions and court mandated functions in which we must oversee and do.
Okay. And I understand that aspect. So when we're talking about relevant, respective to Prince George's County, around what year did the sheriff's department kind of branch into the Prince George's Police Department? Like, what year are we talking? We're talking the 50s, 60s?
I think you may be talking about the 30s, 1930, I want to say.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can quote me, but I want to say it's around the 30s in which the Prince George's County Police Department actually originated from. And then that's when they started their organizations. I want to say it was around then. So the sheriff's office, the only thing that we don't have, we're able to actually go outside the county. We actually go outside the state as well when we do our fugitive apprehension, and that we do extraditions, and we bring those wanted individuals back here to Prince George's County to face their charges or to actually come to court. But
that would be working with like the marshals, right? That you
basically. So it is that same concept. That's where the marshal concept came from, is dealing with the sheriff's office and the sheriff. When you think of England and public safety, you start to talk about the sheriff, and I'm pretty sure Robin Hood, and everything started and originated. The first origination from public safety starts with sheriff. So that's the sheriff of Nottingham.
I had a different depiction. When I thought sheriff, I thought of him like rustling up property, being like slaves, right? So that was the conception of like sheriff's department that I had, was like, of course the function that they served then to that degree was rustling up property deemed by the American government.
Yeah, so you're looking at like taxes, and you're looking at the old school type stuff. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, you're looking at like the old school. That's why I said, most people think of, like I said, Sheriff of Nottingham, Robin Hood, stuff like that, in which they actually came from. That concept came from England when you talk about public safety and law enforcement. And again, it's been here, and it's your primary law enforcement entity throughout the country. But we do not have the investigative power. So when you have like a homicide, that would be the police department, in which they have the investigative powers. When you look at certain other sheriffs throughout the state, some of them have the investigative powers and actually investigate. Charles County, you only have a sheriff's office. Calvert County, you only have a sheriff's office.
Oh yeah.
There are certain counties that only have sheriff's office, and they're primary in reference to that. So Prince George's County, you know, we have the police department, and they are primary when it comes to those investigations. We do have, you know, the same authority. We go through the same academy together,
Okay.
same law enforcement powers. We can pull traffic. They can pull traffic. Again, what separates us a little bit is the fact that, hey, we do go outside of the county and also outside of the state, but we also focus just on court mandated functions, and that's where we get our authority from. It's from the state and the court.
And essentially a lot of times directives are given out from the court. So like when it comes to the sheriff's department, you guys don't have a lot of latitude necessarily.
So that's a very good statement that you made. So a lot of times people always say, well, hey, you a sheriff. I don't really see you guys here in the county. What do you do? A lot of times when we do get those orders from court, it's already been determined, you know. So when we get it, it's not that we don't have the latitude. We already know what the outcome is right now. So either that person is getting served with some sort of documentation, or either that person is being apprehended because they have an open warrant, or either we are there to then address a dispute between property or some sort of civil matter in reference to that. So, you know, a lot of times you wouldn't. If you've never had any issues as far as legal issues with the courts or anything, you probably wouldn't see us on a regular basis. And that's one thing that I definitely do want to make sure that we change, because we play an instrumental part in our community, and then making sure that we serve our citizens and that our citizens know the resources that we can provide for them.
Okay. And I understand that. And from one of the things that, of course, you know, I've seen and I would always, you know, harp on is there needs to be more training, not necessarily on how to do the job, but like, you know, therapy. Would you agree that, you know, there needs to be more therapy and treated differently in the line of work, right? Like a lot of times it's just given that like just tough it up, just, you know, just do your job, just hold your head down. But I think that it's important to realize that, you know, even our law enforcement officers and officials, you know, they have trauma and they have things they're unpacking as well. So I think that they should be encouraged to, you know, receive therapy, but they should also, it should also be readily available, right?
You know, you are absolutely 100% correct on that, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because a lot of our citizens and a lot of people may not understand that those women and men that actually put that uniform on are just like them. You know, of course, you may have cultural differences, you may have language barriers, but ultimately, in doing this job, and this job has been a male-driven career field, so we definitely need to make sure that we are very diverse, not only just from the cultural standpoint, but also to make sure from the standpoint of that we represent everybody, and that is women and men. But we also need to make sure that we represent and have a larger women contingent in the career field. Now, when you talk about tough it up and you know, the stressors of the job, we are really hurting right now. We are hurting because as you go through time, you start to look at the different generations and how the job evolves in reference to what the community is asking us to do. In public safety and in law enforcement, we've been asked to do quite a bit.
You got a lot more,
you know, outside of what, you know, the job may require. We're expected to know everything and to be, you know, you're supposed to be the pastor, you know, you're supposed to be a clinical technician, you're supposed to be public safety, you're supposed to know everything. And a lot of times we don't. And that's what the biggest thing is, we don't. And in this job where you think of, you know, alphas and, hey, nothing bothers you or it's okay, a lot of our folks are hurting. And that's just not sheriff's office, it's county police, it's law enforcement throughout the country, because you can't unsee what you see. You know, you see trauma and deal with negative situations each and every day. When people call you, they're asking for relief. They're asking for you to come there and make the situation better. Now, what happens when you're going through those same issues in your own household? You know, where you're going through situations where you have a divorce or child custody situation, or your mom or somebody else is sick in your family. And when you go on the scene and you see something and you're affected by it, who do you go talk to? A lot of times people feel, well, hey, I can't come back and talk to my coworkers because they're gonna think I'm soft, and you know, they're gonna look at me differently. You know, I can't go home and tell people what's going on because they really won't understand. So I believe when it comes to mental health And self-care, we have to do a better job in making sure that we treat our women and men public safety much better. And that goes for your fire agents, your fire departments, your dealing with the hospitals and nurses and doctors. Again, with everything going on from COVID-19 pandemic to just dealing with the mental health aspect, people are really hurting. And again, this is, I guess you can say it's a job or career, but you're asked to deal with people at their worst and to make the situation better. And that wears on you after a while. You know, we had a retirement of 20 years. It's now been extended to 25. But 25 years of hearing people's issues and problems and trying to address it and make it better, it's going to wear on you. It's going to wear on you. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
No, and John, I'm one of the people that like people call me a liberal, they're calling me progressive. I think that those terms are ambiguous because they change depending on who you're talking to and what you're talking about. So I was definitely one of the people that was upset during 2020, of course, when there was these things that were just thrown over our stream with George Floyd and everything else happening, right? And so one of the things that I constantly said is like, maybe it's the messaging, right? Because sometimes it's not always the messenger. Sometimes it's just the messaging, right? And what I was saying was when we say defund the police, a lot of times people heard, disband the police, right? And I say, for me, I understand that there were a lot of injustice. I understand that injustices still happen, and will continue unfortunately to happen. But the thought is, I never was saying disband. I was saying that maybe we shouldn't look to initially, militarize to the umpteenth degree. Maybe we should, invest more in mobile crisis units. So you guys can have assistance, right? You guys can have therapists and EMTs with you, when necessary. Because the thought is like, you guys, you can't do everything. You can't be EMT, you can't be therapist, you can't be, public. So obviously the strain, has become more, especially, since the Reagan era, right? There was a push where there was less mental health. There was the more war on drugs. So we were criminalizing drugs and we were locking up people. Even if you look, at the system today, a lot of people in the system, a lot of those people have mental health problems that went unaddressed, or, drug problems, that were treated criminally. You know what I mean? So like this goes into it. It's just like how we're looking at it, right? So that's what I'm saying is like, let's not treat our police department like the U.S. Army, the U.S. military, and we're getting.
And you're absolutely right, because again, you can't lock your way out of some of these issues and problems. You can't take a hammer and always hit it and think that you're going to solve something. And when you only have a hammer to use, and everything is going to look like a nail to you. We need a different approach to a lot of our social issues instead of thinking just call law enforcement or call the police. You need other aspects in reference to clinical technicians. You need different programs for our youth and even for our seniors, whether it be dealing with mental health, whether it be dealing with this programs for our youth to occupy them and to help them deal with some of the issues they have problems with. I give you an example. We're responsible for domestic violence. We serve, peace and protective orders throughout the county, and we also run 911 calls response in the central part of the county, which is considered that district, police district 3 and 8. So one thing that we encounter is that a lot of these homes, they have kids, and these kids see exactly what their parents may be going through, and they're traumatized. Now those kids then go to school, they have to have other social contact with other kids and other people, and they may act out. And what do? We'll label those kids. Oh, this is the reason why that child is doing this. Right now we're dealing with our juveniles and a juvenile violence. Well, what's behind that juvenile violence? What is going on in that household? What is going on with that individual? And what I'm saying is that we need to all work together, whether it be from the school system, whether it be from the medical field, whether it be from public safety, whether it be a lot of times from, our faith-based organization. If we actually come together and work hand in hand, we can solve a lot of these problems. But a lot of times people use 911 as the end all be all. Hey, we had an issue or problem with a disturbance. Hey, I want that officer to get there. Now, you don't know how many years of service that officer had. You don't know what that officer's background. And even with the additional training and the training of that person, how do you know that that officer is able or equipped to deal with some of those problems and issues? Now, we do require our folks to go through, and the county police offer this in their academy as well, to deal with mental health or mental behaviors, to try to understand exactly what is going on. But again, I don't have any clinical technicians that are in uniform that can actually address the issue. We want to refer to the experts to assist and help us and to be there. So our job is to talk, de-escalate the situation, and to try to make sure that we're helping and we're benefiting and making the situation much better and not making it worse by now having to lock somebody up or to deal with somebody that was dealing with a trauma from something else.
So it seems like I could definitely call on you as a proponent, when we're trying to expand this mobile crisis unit, response crisis unit for sure.
So we actually, the sheriff's office, we serve emergency petitions. And for those who may not know what emergency petitions are, it is when a family member, goes to the courts asking for relief because their loved one is having they're in distress, dealing with mental health. And when they go to the court, it's what is issued is called emergency petition. And we would actually come to the home or where that individual may be. We would pick that individual up. We would then transport that individual to the hospital so that they can be diagnosed and receive some sort of treatment from a clinical technician or a doctor, somebody who can actually evaluate them professionally and then provide them with the much needed care that they need. It's not locking them up. It's not saying, hey, this person is violent, this person is destructive. It's actually a civil matter in which the courts are asking us or mandating us to actually take this individual to the hospital so that they can be seen. That is the only time that we've ever lost any deputy sheriffs. We lost 2 deputy sheriffs back in 2002, August of 2002, from this issue. We're seeing an uptick. We're doing 130 a month in reference to emergency petitions. And that's not counting the on views in which a Prince George's County police officer or a deputy sheriff may encounter somebody and may do an on view is what we call it. And that's actually taking out a petition to take this person to the hospital. But mental health is on the rise. And I don't think we don't have the bed space. And I think we need additional resources to really be effective here in the county.
An emergency petition, it goes right to the red flag laws. Those are okay.
So that the red flag laws also will allow that individual to be taken to the hospital, but also allows us to take their firearms. If they have access to firearms, it gives us the ability to then take those firearms and keep them take them into that firearms into our custody, so that an individual will not use those firearms and they may be suffering from mental health issues.
Yes, yeah, no, I understand. I'm clear. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I have one big question, then I'll do the few rapid questions for you. I'm a rent warrior. I'm fighting for the tenants here in Laurel, and all over Prince George's, hopefully. The thought is like we have seen evictions happening. How will you manage evictions, under your watch as sheriff? Is there something you would do differently, more compassionately, interject? Like just let me know. Is there anything that you would do around evictions? Like, is there?
It's interesting that you asked that. So the sheriff's office role when it comes to evictions is that we're an impartial party. We receive a eviction writ or a late rent notice from the court, and we're supposed to post the late rent notices when the person is behind on their rent, and that's because the property manager or the property owner has went to the court, has actually filed documentation and paid their money for notice to be given to their tenant to let them know that they are behind in rent and they want to proceed forward with the eviction process.
Which is not a lot of money. It's like $90 or something, right? Something like that.
For the, I believe I think they went up to, I want to say it's $40. I mean, not 40, $14 for a late rent notice that they may actually have to do. Now, when you talk about civil orders, that is now up to $60. So if you want to come and serve a civil order, whether it be divorce or any type of civil order, show cause, it is $60, and that is statewide. That is not set by us. That is set by the state, and it is $60 that when you come to the sheriff's office, you would need to produce, whether it be cash, money order, or certified check. So that is what you can actually come to the sheriff's office and have them do, or either you can go for private processor for that. But when it comes to the late rent notices, That is something that is handled over in Hyattsville, or right off of Rhode Island Avenue at the Hyattsville Courthouse. And that's where they would do all their hearings. And it gives the tenant the ability to actually go to court and to contest exactly the fees or what may be owed. At that moment in time, the judge would then make a ruling. If the judge rules in favor of the property owner has some time that they can actually file for an eviction writ. And that eviction writ will then be signed by the judge and will come over to us. And basically in that eviction writ will basically say exactly what month and how much that tenant is behind in rent and what the property owner is asking the tenant to pay. So when we get it, we then would set up a time frame with the property owner, because the property owner is responsible for, one, having a moving crew, and two, having a locksmith. We do not force entry into the home. We do not move any furniture. It is not the office of the sheriff. It is the responsibility of the property owner. At that moment in time, and based off of the size of the property, whether it's a home or based off of if it's a one-bedroom apartment, they are to have a certain number of moving crew, of individuals there as far as their moving crew, in order for us to proceed. Once we go to the door, what we do is we knock on the door. If someone is home, we talk to them. We explain to them that, hey, if they have, they need to have this amount in order to stop the eviction. If they do not, then we would just basically ask them to grab their emergency items, medication, any identification, stuff like that. And then we would ask them to step out, and that's when the process occurs. So because we are impartial, there are very few things that we can do. Under my watch as sheriff, what I am asking and what I am trying to do is to really try to bring the property owners and the tenants together, along with a lot of our municipal government, sharing the information so you'll know exactly when we do get these eviction writs. Refer them to different resources that, hey, if I am behind or if I have some issues, whether it's because I had medical issues and now I couldn't pay my rent, is there anything that I can do as far as my rights and understanding funding out here? And I see you're wearing a CASA hat. You're working with folks that we should be able to not only just tell you, hey, this is occurring, but here are the resources and here's where you need to go in order to try to either address this issue. So we can't pick sides between the tenant or the property owner. What we're to do is to make sure that we show empathy, and that we are making sure that we're doing our job mandated by the courts, but we want to provide additional resources so that everybody can be made whole again, the tenant and the property owner.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that you mentioned that, and I will highlight to the people, I believe that you'll be a transparent sheriff, and you'll help us with the tenants and advocating for the resources. But one of the things that I caught up on is like one of the things, the powers that you do have as a sheriff, especially working out with a property manager, is an extension of that time frame, like when that time frame happens. And so, like, a lot of times, if you're so gracious and they're so gracious, there might be more time given, more grace than normally given, right?
I think a lot of times when you look at, and I'm gonna say some, I'm not gonna say all, but when you look at it from a whole, if I'm a property owner, I would love to get my money. So if the tenant is able to get some resources or funding, from somewhere or somebody, I would love for them to be able to have that opportunity to get the resources, because again, we don't want to see anybody out the street. I mean, when you talk about evictions or anything, that is a rough thing altogether, because these are families, but you also want to make sure that the resources are there. And that is, somebody like yourself who are as elected official, to be able to, come up with some solutions and problems and be able to provide maybe some additional resources. But from the sheriff's office standpoint, we want to make sure that we can link up everybody so what the trends are. Right now, we also are having problems with squatters, people who are just moving into vacant homes, and they actually have or doing illegal activity in these homes, whether it be selling drugs, whether it be human trafficking. There are a lot of different things that go into it. We don't want there to be vacant properties here in the county that are not being taken care of, used in illegal forms and fashion, because not only does it hurt the property owner, but it hurts those who are in that community and those citizens there. So we want to make sure that we actually are able to service everybody, even in that bad situation in time.
Sure. I mean, as you mentioned, you have the blighted communities, one of the things that I wanted to say is I think that there'll be legislation in the future, and hopefully we can have your voice on it. I've seen in New Jersey that basically evictions are the last step. And so before filing for eviction, you need to have proof that you try to mediate, that you provided them information about resources, rental assistance, whether it be quasi-government or governmental assistance. And the thought is like that's helpful for everybody for the most part, because it keeps people in their homes. And the thought is like we can all come to some agreement sometimes, but it just shows that you made that step. You made that initial.
And I want to make sure that not only do we post the information, we actually also mail the information. So we make sure that they're able to get that notice. And we also actually, by law now, effective October 1st, we have a pamphlet with the state that actually we put into that mailing address and also with the postings, basically saying, here are the tenants' rights, and provides them with their rights and information. So that is also mailed to the house, and that is by state law now as of October 1st. So I would love for you to actually, in December, when I come in, for you to come, and I would love to give a tour to any of the elected officials to come through, so you can actually see what we're dealing with. Because I haven't asked as well, and that is to be able to have partners to really work together hand in foot, so we can really address these issues. Right now we are really suffering and dealing with lack of manpower, and I mean all public safety is dealing with that. And a lot of times people don't want to do the job, but the job is very rewarding when you're helping and you're assisting people. So I definitely would love for you to come and see exactly what information we put out, how we can assist, and how we can work better together. Because again, the property owners, they'll say, hey, we want to hurry up and get these done. And I can understand from a property owner standpoint, if I had a home or property that I'm renting out, and I'm now paying 2 mortgages and I'm struggling myself, I want to be made whole again as well. So it's our job to be impartial, but to try to be fair to everybody. And I still think that we can do that and show empathy to try to make sure that everybody is made whole.
Of course. And I appreciate you, Democratic nominee. I still say sheriff-elect.
Please, November 8th.
Yes, November 8th. Make sure to, cast a vote for, the sheriff, if you sheriff-elect, if you hadn't already. But I wanted to ask you a few quick questions, John, call it the rapid round. I know you're in law enforcement. I know you're a man of compassion. I know you're a man of the people. Are you, or have you already voted yes on question 4? yes. Hey, I got it. Hey, you have the right. You have the right.
That was a good one there. That was a good one. I have voted. I would say that much. I have already voted. And I did see the previous guest that was here, and I do really look. I'm gonna have to give you that answer. I really do believe in reference to, and I understand where we are with the marijuana aspect. I will say that much. So I do not believe that that enforcement piece and actually locking folks up and putting people in jail based off of what we're seeing. And I do appreciate the fact that we are making some changes in the laws, and I do appreciate that. I put it that way.
We need to go as far as New Jersey, New York, man. Let the officers smoke off duty, man.
Now you're saying something completely different now. Yes. Now you're saying something, because again, we are when you have somebody come to your door and you want them to assist you, and if they make a life-altering decision, we want to make sure that their system is clean, that everything is good, and that nobody can say that they were impaired in any way.
Of course. So that's why I want to say off duty. You know what I mean? We could talk about the logistics of that later. but I acknowledge that officers are in a lot of pain, and they could benefit from this medicine. So that's all I'm acknowledging. That's all.
Okay.
But my next question was favorite superhero and why?
I heard you ask that question before, and I was surprised that you guys were talking about Static Shock, and I said, "Oh man, I remember that." But I might have to go with Wolverine. That was my guy back then. I love Wolverine.
Okay, yeah, classic. My mother.
Look, I may look somewhat young, but I'm an old school type guy. But I love Wolverine.
Wolverine's classic, and you can never go wrong with Logan, any of the Wolverine series, X-Men Origins, all good stuff. My last question, and of course, nobody feel any type of way, but we are in gorgeous Prince George's. What's your favorite municipality?
Now there you go again. I love all my municipalities. You talk about. I love all my municipal government and agencies. We're all one. But I will say, I did spend a lot of time in Laurel and Greenbelt as I am a University of Maryland Terp. So I will say that. That's what I will say.
Understood.
So I'm quite familiar with with those communities.
Yes, I know we have 27 municipalities in Prince George's County, so you don't want anybody to feel slighted. But
look, I love them all. I'm gonna tell you that now. I love them all because even the amazing part is, depending on the municipality and the part of the county that you're in, I mean, you touch and you deal with everybody, and that is so rare. Where I can go to different areas of a county and basically get a different feel or a different vibe from everywhere. You can't do that. You can't do that. Up north is much different than where I am down south. So it depends on where you are. And I was with one of your constituents last night, and they were asking about the nightlife up in Laurel and, a lot of areas here in Prince George's County, trying to find some sort of nightlife and trying to make sure that we're able to address folks after hours, in a safe manner, but one for juveniles, but also for the adults as well. So I'm hoping that the county will continue to grow, but it will grow to the needs of its citizens, especially making sure that we can keep a lot of this revenue here, and that people don't feel that they have to go outside the county to either shop. And I love seeing you the other day because you looked sharp the other day and only shopped in Laurel. So I said I got to go up to these shops because let me tell everybody in the audience, if they don't know, he had a coat on that was mean, dressed to the nines. And I'm trying to tell you, I got to get to that boutique or store, wherever you were.
For sure. I appreciate I'll give you the information. We'll come down, get fitted. I love introducing people to Black businesses, especially in Laurel.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I appreciate you. Tell people how they can stay connected with you. Make sure to do your thing on Tuesday and vote. Okay,
so you can stay connected with me at Vote for John D.B. Carr, and also have a website. And again, it's just a pleasure. You'll see me out in the community, and you'll see the sheriff's office out in the community even more.
Of course, thank you for that, message. We definitely want to see you in the community, more grassroots, not just around election time.
Yeah.
When you need to vote. So we appreciate that. And then, I would definitely continue to uplift you, as you step into this role and do great things, and I'll definitely be the first one to call, when something's a little shaky.
Please do.
Definitely know that. Well, I appreciate you, John. And,
thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate you.
Of course. Have a good one.
And you do the same.
So that was this week's edition. We had two very different guests. We had an influencer and employee in the cannabis industry, formerly in the finance industry. We had, a sheriff-elect, former Democratic Central Committee member, and, soon to be Prince George's County Sheriff. So we got to hear from two very different individuals. And, I look forward to continued engagement, but don't forget, make sure you vote. You could mail it in, right? Or if you didn't mail it in, you definitely got to drop it off. But by now, but you can go to the polls on Tuesday. They'll be open from 8 to 8. Make sure to do your thing. Make sure to convince a friend to vote. Come out, come join me. I'm going to be at the Laurel Boys and Girls Club. I will also be bouncing around to a few other places, but see you next week.